So this is the headliner peeling apart. I mean, that's ridiculous. You have a car for 23 years and you already have to replace the headliner. So I'm going to tackle that, I think, myself. But that requires removing the headliner, which requires removing a lot of things. Like these panels here, obviously this guy, this stuff here. Sunroof's a separate part, but that has to be taken out as well. So just a lot of things. You can see everything holding it on, and all the way into the back, all those panels. And I figure I got to take some panels out to install the dash cam underneath anyway, so while I'm here, I'll do it. We're also having a problem with the sunroof, where sometimes you hit the button and it works, sometimes it doesn't. I checked the wiring, it all seems good. I think it may be a bad spot in the motor. I happen to have another motor from the donor car I used on my Corolla project. So I'm going to try and swap that in. I guess there are many different places you can start to remove a headliner. I'm just to start with the sun visors, I guess because they look kind of easy. It is pretty easy, just two bolts here, and on the back side of this guy is another screw holding that in. Obviously that comes out separately, but it'll need to come out because it holds the headliner in. Also, this side has a plug because there's a light in it. Don't know about that side since I modified it so much. I'm probably going to take all that out. That was for a backup camera that we had a long time ago, but now we have a new head unit that has its own backup camera, so that's just still in there from eons ago. So after I pulled this screw out of this guy, I couldn't get it off, and I wanted to show you what it looked like so you know. Next up, this has to come off, and to get it, I believe there's a screw up under here. Yep, there are two screws here. And then I believe if you press this button in, that's the light, so I guess I think you can get underneath there where my middle finger is and pry this piece off, and I think there's another screw in there. In fact, I kind of think I can see it. And then I think it comes out and you unplug the stuff, and I'll show you. Yep, that's exactly what I did. You can see there's the other screw right in the center there. After, like I said, you push this in, you can get a screwdriver in there, and that little lens comes off, and then right there's the other screw. So there are three here, and I believe that's it. I will show you. Okay, so they're all out. It looks like you push forward, maybe backward, left. Okay. Maybe you just pull real hard and break everything. I don't know. Is the mirror in the way? It kind of is. There we go. Okay, then you just unplug those and take it out. Next up is to pull this off. If I slide that, is to pull this off, and it's pretty easy. You just pull it like that all the way around, and you should note that this little knot goes in the back in the middle. After that, I'm going to take off the handle, excuse me, OSH. And I believe you just, I think I need a screwdriver to pry this up. Yeah, they pry up and down here. Oh, that one came off. I thought this one stayed. No, guess not. And then there's your two screws. Next up, I'll remove the dome light. I can shut that now. Some people might say to leave it in because as you start taking out the side panels, the headliner wants to fall on your head, and that would keep it in place. On the other hand, it might also break it, especially when it's 23 years old, so I'm going to go ahead and take it out and live with the panel falling on my head. I mean, the worst is that my head would make the panel dirty, but it's too late for that, right? So that same deal, you pry, there's a spot right here to pry it. You put something in there, hopefully non-damaging, pop it off, and then there's it looks like there are two screws in there, but we'll find out when I get there. It looks like indeed there are four screws in here. The cool thing is when I pried out the lens, all the little junk that was in there just fell right out. It was wasn't real sticky or anything, so that'll be cleaner. Important to note here, all four of these screws, once I cracked them, tightened. They got harder to get, so I had to get a screwdriver that had a better fit to keep from stripping them out. Also, you can see these two are part of the circuit. I believe these will ground to the car. This switch so that the light works, and that may be part of the problem. I mean, it looks pretty clean to me, but this has worked. In fact, it's still plugged in, right? You'll notice it's not on. There, now it's on, right? So it's got, and the doors are open, it should be on now. It's not, so I'll have to look at that while I got it out. Once you get the screws out, you can see very easily right here is the connector. It's one of the easiest ones to actually see how it works. Alright, to remove these panels, I've already done an extensive video on that when I did the rear shocks, so you can go look at that. If I remember, I'll put it in the description. But real quick, if you pry this open, I think you can even do it with your hands. It helps if you have two of them though. You pry this open, there's a bolt in there, you pull it out. This whole thing comes off and falls down. If you pry this open, you can see it's starting to get a little gnarly from all the times I've done it. If you pry that open, this little door opens, there's a screw in there to pull that off. After that, you got to attack the back seats because the hinge for this back seat goes through the panel, regrettably. So you pull these down and you remove the bolts down at the bottom for this seat. Okay, the next step is, since I started this process a little bit late, is to go in and have some lunch. Okay, I finally got this piece out here, and obviously there aren't any screws or anything, so you just have to pull it. When I got to this part though, it got really scary because I was pulling on the dash, and the dashboard is not broken. It's a problem. It's not cracked. It's a problem in Florida because of all the heat that we have here, and I really didn't want it to crack. But what happened was I could lift it at the front, I could lift it at the back, but I couldn't get them both. And there is a knife-like thing that fits down the middle, and I think it has to come kind of straight up. You also had to pull this off first, but I didn't have to take it out, so I didn't have to do anything on the bottom down here. I'm not sure why that doesn't fit right. Anyway, I will attempt to film it on the other side. Okay, it's once you get the back panel out, and you only need to do the top. I don't know why, I always keep thinking it's one piece and you have to do the bottom. So you don't have to remove the seats like I did. Anyway, once you get that piece out that's holding it in, you can pull this down. That was pretty easy. The rest of them, not so much. Well, that went easy too. All right, there you go. So you can see, now this part, you can see how it's sort of lifting at the front up there, in this corner down here. And here, you can see it's sort of lifting at the back, but it's sort of stuck in the middle. Yeah, I'm going to need to put the camera down. I'm going to see if I can put the camera in a place that you can see what's going on. And you can see, I hope that's in focus, you can see it broke that. It's just very difficult to get this part out. So in addition, you'll get a bunch of these little clips. Some of them stay on the panel and some of them stay in the car, like that one. And so don't lose track of them because you need them. Looks like the last time this was put in, this got smashed. So that sucks. I'm sure not going to try and get a whole new one of these pieces, but when that doesn't click in, the paddle can have a tendency to rattle around, and it really sucks. So I believe that frees the headliner now. It's being held by the mirror up front here, and there may be some clips or something in the back. I don't know. We're going to find out. It looks like this wire is getting caught. There we go. It feels like something popped in the back. Yes, I can see a clip way back there where my finger is. Oh, there we go. Okay. It is free. Now, if it's like my Corolla, the opening of the door is not big enough for the headliner to come out unless you fold it. Theoretically, bend it. But for the Corolla, it was more like folding. It may have even put a tiny crease in it. And of course, the older it is, the harder it is to get it out in one piece. I once caught a headliner this big. I don't know if you can see me. Okay, so that went exactly like it did in the Corolla. It was too big to fit through that hole, and I had to fold it, and from the top I could actually see it was creasing it. Fortunately, the crease kind of comes back out. I mean, if this were a cardboard box, it wouldn't hold together very well anymore, but because it's a headliner, it does. Okay, so I'm not fixing the headliner today because I don't have fabric, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. There is the headliner, and you can see there are some worn spots. Like this is where the sun visor comes down, and there even is some, and there's a smudge there, and so forth. But most importantly, the headliner has this foam. And it's the foam, you can see right here, the foam is still attached to the headliner. So the glue didn't give way, the foam did. And the off chance this helps somebody do whatever, I'm going to now show you a detailed view of the what's under the headliner and above it, technically, and on the roof. On the right side of the car, I don't say passenger side in case there are other countries involved. As you can see, there's the drain tube. It comes up to here, and there are no wires on the right side. The closest you get is this one, which actually comes from the left side of the car for the light in the mirror, but there are none here. Not until you get to the back, where that controls the, I believe that controls the heating strip for the defrost. And as you can see, it comes from sort of underneath. It may even come from the other side, because there's some over there too. All right, I'm not sure if it comes from there or comes from there. But, yeah, no wires on the right side. Here is the metal where it is, so the trim piece comes on like that. Here is the sunroof, I don't know, housing, the entire assembly. And these screws here apparently help attach this aluminum extrusion to this cross brace, but here they are riveted on, so you can't just remove this cross brace. You can remove the whole thing by unscrewing here and here and here. I also believe there's some up front. I don't know, because step one on how to change out this guy is to remove the whole thing, regrettably. The only thing that stops it from sliding out is right here in the back. Sorry, I had to get my arm around it. There's a screw that comes up here. There's a little rubber thingy on it. It's kind of doesn't do much. As you can see, it moves around a lot. Anyway, there's a screw that comes in and this bumps against that screw. But the screw is threaded from the top, so you can't just remove it and try and slide down the glass. Although, honestly, I think this is too rigid to bend that way anyway. But my thought was maybe I could loosen here and here and here on both sides and just sort of tilt this down, remove those screws, and then slide it out. And that may be possible. I might start doing that. But I have a feeling it doesn't want to do that because it's going to be pretty rigid. You know, even if I get all these out on the sides, it's still going to have the one, whatever's on the front, right? And the glass is attached to this assembly, and it's possible that once I pull those out, I won't be able to bring it down at all because it's going to be wanting to pull on the glass. Now, to get this out, step one is to remove the glass by removing the 4 Torx. Doing the tour, you can see here's some wiring. Here's the wiring for the sunroof, right? If you just disconnect that and take out the bolts, this comes out, and you'll see inside the 2 cables. And when you put the new one in, you just have to make sure the mark's on the mark, as I mentioned before, and you just put it back up and screw it back in. Pretty easy. Plug it in. All pretty much done on that, which is good. I have a spare. This wiring and this wiring both go to that control unit that was up here for the light and the control for the sunroof. Over here, so the wiring, that wiring is on the left-hand side, but there is some that also goes across to the back. And it comes up, it stops here at the dome light. You can see right there. Sorry for the camera movements. You can see it stops mid-ish way. Right? And then this side looks more or less the same as the other, except for the wiring that runs down, which, as I mentioned before, is not on this side, but it is on that side. So if you need to access any wires that are coming up, it's going to be on that side of the car, which makes sense because down there is the fuse box, right? There's the back drain. You can see where it runs. And another one on the other side, right? That's about it. This slides. There's nothing there but metal roof. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I got this on my video because I only found on one other video. To get to those torques, this one obviously you can kind of already get to, but this one you couldn't. This piece here, you can get your finger under it and pull it out this way. That's how you get that off. Okay, I couldn't quite get my finger in there on the left side. It kind of came out easy on the right side, but I don't think it was pressed all the way in, so I'm going to go ahead and use a tool. Very difficult to see back in there, I know. Huh. This side's being stubborn. No, it's too hard. I'm going to turn on the camera light because I can't see there either. Okay, that was kind of funny. I went through the entire menu system. I just could not find the light until I turned around, looked at the front, and realized there is no light on this camera. That's how cheap it is. All right, well, I'll go get a different light then. Okay. Let's see if this works. There we go. All right. So you can see now how that worked, right? I still can't get in there. I don't know why the other one was so much easier. I can't get my light. I gotta move my head around. There we go. Okay. All right, there it is. And you just pull it out and try not to break it. It's old plastic. Really hard to get the last one out. And now I'd like to point out that if you're not sure, there's a curvature to it. You can see that would be up, right? Because it's curved upward like the shape of the roof. That would be backward, right? So if it goes like that, so if you're trying to figure out if it goes this way or is there only one way? I guess there kind of is only one way. Good grief, it's a monkey test. Anyway, I was going to say, if you're confused which side you have maybe, and they might be even identical, you can see right there there's a square hole and a round hole, and you could match the square and the round there to get it to go back in when you go to put it back in. My camera's acting up, so I didn't film taking out the glass, but there are 4 torques. You can see the shiny holes there. They go in from the side. They're real short. And there it goes again. Alright, step 1 is to take a look at and maybe take some photos of the way it originally is, just in case you need it for anything. And then I got to pull this off. I've already checked the fabric matches, so I know I've got what I need. I bought 3 yards. 2 yards would cover this whole thing. But I thought I might need a separate piece for the sunroof here, since you know, the piece you cut out isn't going to match exactly, right? It's got to fold under and stuff. Also, I thought maybe something might be used for the visors, so I bought a whole extra yard, and it was $62 at a place called, I don't know, something in the description, online fabric store, I think. Since I've got this problem, I think I'm going to do it just the same way everybody else does. I'm going to try and take off this layer of foam. I may put some adhesive in between these two just to see if that helps, but I don't see that I have anything to lose. First of all, I doubt very seriously this headliner is available at Toyota anywhere, and I'm not going to successfully recreate this anyway. It's not the kind of project I'm interested in getting into right now. I mean, I've still got a donor car that isn't running. So I'm going to try and take off just this layer of foam and get down to the top of the bottom sandwich and glue it on like normal. If it doesn't last as long, hopefully it'll last at least a few years before I have to maybe do it again, figure something else out. Yeah, this is really disappointing. I didn't know that the the headliner board is deteriorating too, not just the fabric. Okay, you can see I got maybe a quarter of it done, and that was 25 minutes of work. And you can see there's still some areas here that need more work, but that's okay, because what I do is when I pull the brush, you'll notice if I pull the brush, it's no problem. But if I try and push the brush, it's really hard. So once I can start going back and forth, then I know that's good. Also, I wasn't being aggressive enough at the beginning. I was being real delicate because of the way it was falling apart. So now I can see this is just a thin layer of fiberglass and another thin layer of fiberglass sandwiching this foam. And yeah, it's starting to come apart. So, yeah, well, you know, 23 years, right? All right, so 25 minutes. This looks like it's going to take me probably 2 hours to do the whole thing and get it down to a finish that I'm happy with. Because after this, I'm going to try and sand it a little bit, or just make sure I got everything off. So this is Hurricane Nicole just leaving the area. Left behind a little bit of damage, but nothing serious. I haven't checked out the rest of the neighborhood. I haven't even really checked out my house yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm good. What I can tell you is this tree had a whole lot more leaves on it before. Anyway. I wanted to address something here that I can't believe I didn't address. The sunroof. I didn't show removing the track of the sunroof, and that's kind of I mean, it's not a complicated thing. I showed you where all the nuts and bolts were earlier, but I didn't show it like coming out, and I'm kind of surprised I didn't do that. I also showed that there were 2 screws on the end that stop the slider that's underneath the glass. It stops it from going, you know, off the end, kind of a thing. You'll have to remove those. It's kind of obvious, but that has to be out of the car. That's a lot of wind. That has to be out of the car to get it out, right? So once you do that, then the sunroof, I'm not sure what you call that thing. It's like a little vanity cover or whatever, or sunshade. The only thing tricky there is that there is a little handle that you pull, and you have to take 2 screws out, and that handle comes off. Then you just cover it. It's pretty flat, so covering that with the headliner is pretty easy. And then it just reassembles in the opposite order. I'll go in the car and show you now what I mean. So here's the little handle I was talking about, and here's the slider, right? So, you know, I had to remove that whole track. You saw me in the process of doing it, but I never really showed it coming out, sitting on the ground, or anything of that nature. And then in the back, there are those 2 things I was telling you about, 2 little bump stops. And they were broken. They were rubber. And I guess from hitting it, every time you do that, you sort of hit it, they broke. So they're not super critical. I mean, just the screws alone will keep it. It'll hit a bump stop if it's the screws. But I actually 3D printed 2 new little bumpers. But anyway, here's the handle. You just, there are 2 screws on the top side, and this pops out. And then you can see the rest of this is all very flat. So it's pretty easy to do. And the good news is, what I was showing earlier with all of the fabric wrapped around the top, and it looked pretty ugly, I thought, oh, you can see that through the glass, but you really can't. So what I showed there with the fabric wrapped over is fine. You won't see it. But what I can tell you is if you don't trim it very, very close to here, it does get a little tighter. But I don't have a problem with that because I think it'll get looser over time, right? So that's that. And then I do mention in the next segment about putting the track back in and how you need to be careful with the bolts. But one of the ways I got it out was on this side. I loosened all the bolts all around except one there. I loosened it all the way until it was about to come out, and I removed all the rest. And then I did the same on the other side. And then when I was ready, I also didn't want to get grease on the leather, so I put some towels there. And then when I was ready, I just loosened that last bolt a little bit. It dropped, and then I went to the other side, did the same thing, and I just kind of finagled it out the door. So, yeah, I'm surprised I didn't have any video of that. Sorry about that part, because I wanted to show. I like to show all of the details. So if you want to do this job yourself, then you can. Another thing I didn't show, and it's really, really important actually, because one of the things I saw in all of the videos was, you want to get down in the contours first. And this contour was very deep. And what happens is contact cement, once the 2 sides touch each other, they're glued. That's it. You'll never get them apart. You might be lucky if there's just a tiny incidental contact. You might be able to pull them apart in a very small spot real quick. But generally speaking, when contact cement, the two sides touch each other, that's it, they're glued forever. So when you got a deep pocket, and you can see here, I'll push my finger in there, you'll see I'm actually stretched across. I'm not glued all the way down in the hole. And that's because this was really deep. And so you can imagine trying to push fabric down into a coffee cup without touching the rim of the coffee cup, right? And as soon as I did, it glued. I couldn't move it around any at all. Fortunately, you really kind of can't, tell. It might mean that it's going to start sagging there, since it's essentially a built-in sag, right? But it's okay. But I just wanted to warn you, you got to get all those pockets first, and you may or may not be able to even do it. An important note on reassembly: all these bolts, nuts and bolts, these here and there, all the way around, are a very low torque. Do not over torque them. I just used this guy. It's 49 foot-pounds. Let me put it somewhere you can see it. Just this little guy here is 49 inch-pounds. Sorry, inch-pounds. So it doesn't take much at all. Also, the sunroof, when it goes in, my sunroof catches on the roof here, and it doesn't want to go down. It starts to peel that rubber gasket around the glass off. And to prevent that, one day, I think I even made a previous video on it. I'm not sure if I ever uploaded it. I tried to lube it. And you need something that's safe for rubber, and silicone is good for that, but you need to be careful. The sprays have petroleum in it. Silicone doesn't, but the spray does because of the propellant that's in it. So you may not want to use the spray ones. Find a silicone gel, and if you don't know what that is, I had trouble finding it, and people were complaining about it was too thick or too thin or too whatever. But I finally found actual silicone gel, and I'll show you. It's this stuff. It's just dielectric grease. Turns out, if you flip it over, it says basically that it's silicone, and it doesn't have any petroleum products in it, and won't mess up those seals. Yeah, so that's really important, because you cannot replace the rubber gasket around that glass. You have to replace the entire glass, which at this time is still available from Toyota. It's $1,200. Yeah, I wasn't doing that, not unless it breaks. The other thing is, you may notice, this is not all that straight. I thought because it was hidden, but as you can see, it's actually kind of not hidden. I'm not really sure. I have now installed it and torqued it, and here is the, good, that's the shade. I think I can now put the glass back in, and then I can move on to the next thing. I can put these on, these guys here on. And the sunroof motor, and run the wires for the brand new dash cam that I have in. I made a special mount underneath. I do not know if the headliner is going to fit on there, but I tried to make it as tight as I could up against there. If it doesn't, I may have to take this off, use a suction cup. I want it to be tucked up more and a little less obvious in that big sucker on there. I couldn't put it here because of these little dots, so the sucker wouldn't suck. So we'll see how this goes. That took a lot of effort and time. I even drilled into the car a little bit, and I had to protect that against rust. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I hope you can see that. It's real backlit. I apologize. All right, here's the backside of the headliner prepped. You don't have to do this. I never saw anybody else do this, but I went ahead and masked this off so that when I spray, I'm only getting glue here, because if this is a big piece, and I could trim it, of course. This is a relatively big piece. If I get like a little bit here and I fold it over and I don't want all that excess, it'll be stuck there and I'll be trying to pull it off, right? So if I only get it where I want it, I think it'll be easy to trim afterward. Now, I may be totally wrong about that. Like the guys online that were doing this, they trimmed it ahead of time, and that's okay too. The reason I'm not doing that, I find it's kind of difficult to trim, actually. The foam's like really fragile, if you will say. I mean, it's really like easy, but the fabric is pretty strong. I'm having trouble even poking through it with a razor. But mostly, I like the idea of being able to sort of pull on the fabric. I mean, this has got a lip. I wouldn't want to do it there. But, I can kind of use the fabric to pull. I'm just one of those people that I'm always afraid to get rid of anything I might need until I'm absolutely certain I don't need it. So I'll put some cuts here, right? But this is very wide. You don't want to go in the corner because then you could see it. I mean, I think this will be covered, so if it's covered, you kind of don't have to worry about it much at all. You just can put as many cuts as you want, right? But, for instance, if this were a nice corner that you didn't want to see it, you wouldn't want it this wide, because you can see as I try to fold it, a line comes across here because it just can't quite get into that corner and if you kind of force it, it'll be under tension all the time. That's where it's going to want to separate later. So make the corner a little bit. You can see I put a cut here already. I wanted to show you that though. So make it a little bit smaller, and it's the same thing can be said for outside corners. So here, like I put a cut this way and that way one time. When you pull it over, then technically you've got this little corner that will stick out in the cut. And so what you'd really kind of want to do is cut near the corner, so that you have a little flap here that can come over in the middle, and then one like that, and that will completely cover that corner, again, if it's visible. But not so much that, you don't want to do it so much that when you pull, you're like stressing the corner by putting that out there, right? Another one is right here where stuff you're certain is going to be covered. You do need to cut pretty close into the corner, right? Otherwise, you can kind of see how right here, it doesn't kind of want to go all the way. So if you cut only a little bit, then it's stretching the fabric again. So that's it. Some of these guys, they just put like a whole bunch of cuts and that helps them. I think more cuts is kind of better. Theoretically, none of this stuff shows anyway, right? It's on the back side. So, and in this case, I put a little cutout for my dash cam because I'm pretty sure it's going to hit on that, and I hope I measured over and hopefully I got it right. But that's going to give me a way to give me just a little bit of a relief for that, and I'm hoping it won't cause this to bow where that is. So now I'm just going to spray here and here all around wherever I need it, and I'll probably use some paper to shield stuff like that. I don't want to make that mistake again, and glue it down. So here's the finished product. I'll step back so you can see the whole thing, but I'm not super happy with it. I have to be honest, this is the exact kind of thing I am worst at. I think it takes a bit of a artistic touch to do things really well, and obviously this is my first one, so it would be helpful if I had a little bit of experience. I did get some glue, as you can see here, on it, which is very annoying. It's actually overspray. When I had it flipped under, it kind of got underneath, and fortunately some of it's in here. That's the dome lights, will cover it up. But mostly, if you just look down this way, you can see it's kind of all ripply. It's not perfect and smooth like the original one was. In a couple of areas, and I've already showed you here where it's just stretched across because, yeah, I couldn't get down in the hole, which is very annoying. But also had a pucker here and here, and I have one over here, obviously. I think this one might be covered up. The corners here were really hard. They curve funky, and of course I managed to get another pucker. And then there's something here. This came this way in the fabric. It was, when it was rolled up, it had a little bit of a kink there. I'm told this comes out. On YouTube anyway, some of the guys said it comes out over time. Maybe some of this will get smoother over time too. I can only hope. I'm skeptical about that. Also, this is the worst part, is right here where I have a little pucker. This is like, it's good to put more cuts. I think almost more cuts the better all the way around, because then you can do piece by piece. What had happened is I was like pressing this here, and this accidentally folded not all the way up against the material, and then stuck. And so now you can't pull it apart without ripping the fabric apart, right? So I decided to leave it and hope that it's not visible again. It's along the edge, and I'm hoping the edges are all covered up. So we'll see. Some of these holes, yeah, I mean, if this is what you were looking at, it isn't great, but of course the thing goes there, so that'll cover that up. Sunroof came out okay. I think there's one little spot right here, but again, it's got a little sort of band that goes on there. So yeah, for a first time, I mean, I guess it's okay, but if I received one like this that I'd paid for, I would reject it, to be honest. So, but I can't do this again. I don't have time. I got to put the car back together again. But here's the headliner. It looks pretty good. I mean, I'm sorry, it's dark in here. The only thing I don't like is, well, it looks a lot better now. There's some sort of, it's not super smooth there. It looks pretty good. I mean, if people don't look up, so it looks really good. All of my mistakes were around the edges, and they're hidden by the trim. Or up here, it's hidden by the dark. Anyway, and you don't see all those little notches and stuff, they're all hidden. Here's, you can see a little bit of an error like right here, but really not bad. So if you have errors really close to the edge, then you know, you may get lucky. I did not recover these, and I didn't get rid of that yet, but I will eventually. I just wanted to get it back together. I need to drive the car. Oh yeah, one last thing I forgot. It's really important. Well, two last things are really important. First of all, so I got this big can. This is what I use. Make sure whatever you use says headliner, not regular or upholstery or whatever. It needs to be for headliners. I think it'll hold up better in heat and stuff like that, and for it hanging downward all the time. Also, I used a lot. I originally bought one can. It's so big I thought, oh, that'll do the whole thing, no problem. But I actually needed nearly 3 cans. This one's almost empty. So make sure you get enough. Also, it varies widely in price. This can was $30 at one parts store, and immediately adjacent to that, I went in and it was $18. And then when I went on the internet, I think I found it for like $15. So if you can think ahead, get and I'm not even sure this is the best brand, to be honest. So if you think ahead and you find a quality brand for less, I'd order 3 cans just to be on the safe side. And the last thing is, you know, you don't have to use headliner or fabric. You could use some other kind of fabric. And I saw a guy who actually let his child decide what he was going to put in the car. It was a blue car, and he found like a Mario Brothers sort of blue fabric that he put on the top. It looked kind of funny, really, and a little childish, but hey, you know, it's fun to shake things up. But very important, if you do that, make sure that you test it out somehow, because sometimes if you, like, some people try and just repair the fabric on the headliner instead of replacing the whole thing, especially if they're gonna like flip the car or something or sell the car, and the adhesive will like show through the fabric, so you'll actually see where it was all glued. You'll see all those glue marks and stuff on the ceiling, and I think that's maybe why there's like a foam backing on there, right? So you know, make sure what you do is correct if you want to use something different. That's it. Alright, so that's pretty much the end of the video. It's a little bit choppy. I need to really plan these things out better. I'm also sorry about the length. I like to include a lot of detail, but it takes a lot of effort to really produce a video the right way, thinking it all ahead, sort of scripting it out ahead of time, which was my original intention. But I'm kind of retired-ish, and I don't need another job, so I will continue to try in the future to make these things shorter. But I did want to point out one last thing. Before I did all this, I ordered a couple samples online from this store called Online Fabric Store. I'll put a link in the description. And what showed up were these two, and this one was a pretty close match. I was very happy with it, but then I found that this one was an exact match, more or less. So I'm really glad I did that, so I got the right material. Since then, I've learned you might be able to get these at a local fabric store, like if you're in America, Joann's Fabrics, I think, also has these. Might be a little bit easier. Don't know if it'll be cheaper unless you have a coupon. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and you can see in detailed fashion how you do this on a Solara. Some of the stuff I didn't include is available in a lot of other YouTube videos, so I go look at those for more information. That's it. Thank you for watching.